get started, may I invite Colonel Rohit Dev to please open the sessions with setting the context to this roundtable on supply chain diversity and gender responsive supply chains. Colonel Rohit Dev has been very special. You know, I guess many people, when we were joking about this just now with all the other experts, that we're talking of a gender responsive topic, and there seem to be more men. But you know what? I'm really happy about that. I think, and for me to bring in a person like Colonel Dev to make that statement, opening address, is even more important because he literally stands for diversity, right? His experience right from the army to the UN to a corporate, and then of course to an academic institute, just tells us the value of diversity and what it can do for a person as well as the industry and as well as the society and economy at large. So absolutely my pleasure to invite Colonel Rohit Dev, who's the adjunct professor and chief operating officer at the Rashtriya Raksha University and Pressel, a very dynamic social media influencer, CEO at Pressel, and the adjunct professor. He's part of few think tanks and on committees with few ministries. Nicknamed RDX, think about that. Oh my goodness me. I hope we are not going to see fireworks here. Veteran with great insights in geopolitics, national security, operations, logistics, and human resource. Most important, as I said, is his background in supply chain, which is why we have kind of requested him to do this for us. And of course, he has very obligingly agreed to do so. So, Colonel Rohit, over to you.
Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you.
And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever is your time zone currently on RISE. And it's my proud privilege to be here with Karen and her team, and also all the other participants who are going to be, voicing their opinions around this. So let me just give you a small flavor of what I think where we are. Anything which moves on Earth is a logistic. For some nightmare, for some it's easy. Right, Amazons of the world are not created overnight, and so is a company like mine, which deals with picking up biomass from the fields as a waste and doing business out of it. So to put it simply, I'm very happy. I see one lady here, Theresa Dow, rest all are gentlemen, and I see Karen on top. So there are two ladies, and you have especially put few men there to talk about a topic which is quite close to my heart as well. So while I was in the army, there was always a challenge whether women should step into the shoes of a soldier or not. And that debate took the Indian military about 20 years. And now we're getting a handle of it, that where we should go. So when we started, we put the women initially in all the office spaces, right? So all the regiments which had requirements there, they went there. Then slowly and surely, we put them into, those assisting kind of environments, which is supply chain cores. I'm putting in mind, it's not called supply chain cores, these were supply chain. We put them in engineers and other cores as well. And slowly, we went ahead. And today when I'm in the corporate sector, I see so much of women infusion, right from top, whether you see a PepsiCo, Noori Rani, or you see somebody who's working in my company, women are across all spectrum, even RISE. I mean, I've been following them for the last few days now only. And you see from top to wherever I go, there are ladies, women who are trying to get this together and stitch one of the greatest platforms on earth probably today, with the diversification of topics, subjects, and participants. So it all says that women have the entire go in them. And let's not forget, even men are born out of women. So women are the true, creators of this universe as I see it. And in all the sections of society today, whether it's education, which is primary, where a lot of women made forays initially, then we saw engineers, doctors. Today, they are entrepreneurs. It gives one so much of heart today as supply chain, corporate sector think tank or a curator, to see so many women associating with us today and trying to cull out a dream from even what we are doing. From the same waste, I see a lady today sitting in UP. She's making particle boards. And from the particle board, she's creating a vision for affordable housing in the country. I see a lady today who's taking all this and creating furniture. I see many ladies, quite a few of them, who are making crockery, cutlery, and straws which you drink, soft drinks and other beverages. So there is a huge possibility. And I think there has been in India particularly, and I will not shy away from saying a lot of apprehension of in which roles to consider women to come and join hands and work forward. But today the canvas is set. The finance minister is a lady. She was an ex-defense minister. And in the supply chain, if I go to transportation sector today, the only thing which was left was driving a truck. I see somebody driving a truck and a bus today. In all the logistic warehousing, I see women. In places where I am sitting, I see women. In places above me, people who are doing things, I see women. So there is no aspect of supply chain, logistic, transportation, warehousing, curation of a logistic chain where you don't see women. And that is something which has to be imbibed. As a culture, there has been an issue. It was primarily also a cultural issue when we thought about, oh, women in the army. Then we had to look towards the West and see women in Iraq, in the US military, right? So that is a perception which is created due to lot of deep-rooted insights and cultural issues where we have to evolve from. And for that, I believe, I truly believe that each one of us should not have any gender bias towards any entrepreneur, towards any business line, towards any walks of life or any profession as well, so long as it can be done. In the army, I used to give people example of General Panag's daughter, Gul Panag, if you all know her. She used to be a Bollywood actor as well. She could do 60 push-ups in 2 minutes, right? That's the standard for the US Army. So there is nothing which holds back a lady or a woman to do what she does. And I have so much of respect because most of the ladies, even in the entrepreneurial world or the corporate sector today, they do that with elan and grace and a lot of professionalism, while even not compromising at their own domestic requirements with their families, relatives, and friends. So what it tells you in the same canvas of 24 hours, a lady has been able to put more time and commitment to a cause and many multiple causes, ranging from household to business lines and beyond in her lifetime, and many such examples there. So all I can say to just kickstart this discussion is that I draw a lot of inspiration myself. And when I joined, I will confess, I had an issue when I said, okay, if we have to do field surveys in such remote areas and Naxal areas as well, should I send those ladies who are in my office who are leading that vertical for that assessment study or a consultation? For the first time, I was a little wary. For the second time, I made sure that all the security concerns, which I had as a security specialist as well, I negated them before sending them to field. So that's my call. But I don't think so. That lady felt that she was doing something which was out of her gender capability. So she was more than willing to do it. But apprehension was in me to make sure as a CEO of the company that the security is provided to her to go out to that wilderness. And that's the way it is, ladies and gentlemen. I have seen enough in the corporate sector. I have seen in the UN how the desks of logistic chains are primarily held by ladies. I used to walk into many walks into the UN headquarters in Sierra Leone. And wherever I went, right from nearly a 60-year-old lady used to guide me to the youngest possible in terms of teenagers joining the UN as volunteers, there has been no gap. You see any natural calamity. When the supply chain is curated for that particular effort, the NGOs, if I map the NGOs and if I map the number of women employed by those NGOs doing that work or leading those initiatives, if you say any humanitarian crisis, the ladies and the women are everywhere. So let's draw hard from that. And I think there is not a better world in which actually the ladies should lead. I don't want ladies to follow by my side and go together. If they lead, I'm quite sure they make lesser mistakes. That's my learning in corporate world. They are more dedicated. They are more loyal to the cause. They are deeply committed. And they can be relied upon some factor called dependability when you look at operations. That factor is very, very high in a woman or a youth or a lady. A lot of interns have gone through my desk, and I take a lot of pride in sense that today India itself is evolving to see lady entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, and not only they're doing it, they're at positions today to make it happen for the next generation. So that's the cause to take heart. So I will just put a pause there, Karen, and let's hear views from others as well and participate. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Colonel Dev. I think that was a phenomenal setting of the context and also an understanding of the entire supply chain logistics, but also about women as the roles that they play and how they kind of manage a lot of things very, very efficiently. I think, one of the things, and you pointed out, was about the men. And I did say, I did kind of allude to it when I started. But I think one of the most important things in the whole women empowerment and the gender space is to make sure that this is not about women against men. This is not at all. It's not also about women being better than men. It's simply about ensuring that, women, if we say the Chinese proverb that women hold up half the sky, that women actually get that 50% chance to really be a part of the economy, of society, and at every different level. So I think it is walking together. And so the more men we bring into the conversation, the less it will become about women against men. It will be about men and women together. I think that is really the one message I would like to kind of add to what you mentioned just now. To come to the roundtable really quickly, I think we know we are partnered with WeConnect International on this roundtable, who does a lot to promote women-owned businesses and women entrepreneurship. And we will get to that in just a minute. But I just want to talk about the format of the roundtable, because we do follow a very, very unique format with no panels and no presentations. Basically, over here, the way we will do it is we have three main categories of the conversation, and I would request all of you to please think from those points of view when you are putting your points across. Also speak to the room, because the more relevant you are to what others are looking for, what others are interested in, the better they will be wanting to connect with you, right? Whatever extra information you want to give about your organization, about your programs, about your initiatives, please use the chat. We are very, very happy to make that happen. The chat is definitely your vehicle to kind of share as much information as you want. And also I want to say is, many people say 2 hours, it's too long, people are webinared out, we can't do more than an hour. Believe me, we have gone over time on every single roundtable, and we are keeping 10 minutes as our cap for every roundtable. But last roundtable, which we just finished, we even crossed that limit and we were 20 minutes over time. Of course, we take the permission of everybody in the roundtable to do that, but that's exactly how intense the conversations start getting in, which is why we don't spend time on introduction. So what I would request everybody, please put a brief introduction about yourself in the chat box so that everybody gets to know you. And yes, for those who will be speaking, the main speakers, we will definitely putting your full profiles in the chat box as well. I also wanted to explain the format, over here. It's not like your typical webinar where, your attendees and panelists. Unfortunately, the technology says this and we can't change that part. But the way it is, there is an inner circle and then there is an outer circle, right? So the inner circle are those who are definitely going to be speaking, and, as much as possible, we will trying and bringing in as many voices as possible. But also from the outer circle, we want people to be continuously giving us feedback. And one of the ways to do that and interact with the experts, because it's very difficult to otherwise do all of it together. So use the Q&A. Our experts will answer you on the Q&A, and that's another way you will get to make sure that your questions don't get lost in the chat box, because in the chat box, try and keep it more for comments, feedback, ideas and thoughts. But Q&A, keep it in the Q&A so that we can encourage. And I'm saying this to all the experts over here, and all of you are experts. Anyone who feels like answering that question, please go ahead. It doesn't necessarily have to be only one answer. It could be multiple answers. So even if it's moved to the answered box, please check those as well. And if you choose to, please answer those as well. Yeah. So please make complete use of both the Q&A and the chat box. We want to know more about you. And without forgetting it, please do put your quick introductions in the chat box as well. Yeah. So to get us started, I am going to request Eroshan Alagat, the South Asia Regional Director, who manages the entire South Asia region for WeConnect International. He has worked in the international development sector for more than 15 years, supporting SMEs in various markets and value chains across South Asia. With a passion for helping inclusive business development, he has supported successful women-owned businesses. I think I will stop here because we really want to hear from you, Eroshan, to kind of take us on these three buckets of the challenges, the capabilities, and then, of course, the collaboration, because that is what we want to know. What are these challenges that we can address, and how can we overcome them? What are the kind of strategies, models that our people are using? And then finally, of course, opportunities to collaborate, opportunities and resources that can be shared, and ideas that can be shared. So Eroshan, please get us started on the challenges part, and of course take the conversation much more deeper and further. Yeah, over to you, Eroshan.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the nice introduction. Hello, everyone. So good afternoon. And so I'm representing WEConnect International in this roundtable. So I would like to give some sort of, a background of our studies and the researches that we conducted that shows pretty much clear, on the issues and the challenges when the corporates and women-owned businesses are facing when come to gender inclusive sourcing, or making the value chain, corporate value chains inclusive. Our global study shows that, even though 1/3 of all private businesses in the world are owned by women, the women-owned businesses would still be accessing only less than 1% of the large corporate and global the government spend. Just 1% of the 30%. So this is the global scenario. While majority of the business opportunities or transactions within that 1% is happening in the Western world. So the majority of the challenges actually relies in the rest of our part, like South Asia, Southeast Asia, Africa, and other countries where these supply diversity and inclusion concepts is fairly new, and the people and the main actors are not very much into it. So we conducted an ecosystem research to answer a question of why only few women-owned businesses are winning the procurement contract from the large buyers. Especially with the focus in South Asia, because I'm leading the South Asian market, and I just wanted to understand why the challenges are to better prepare ourselves in driving the gender inclusive sourcing work into the reality. So one of the challenges that we identified here is, majority of the corporate buyers that participated in the research process did not have any policies or practice in place to source women-owned businesses, because it's simply not their priority. Right, so they don't understand why it is important to source from women-owned businesses, what value they are bringing in while making their supply chain diverse. For an example, if you take India, we interviewed about 35 corporates, larger corporates in India, but none of them have said that they have a formal policy or any written guidelines within the organization to encourage sourcing from women-owned businesses. And if there's no supply diversity and inclusion policies, that are put in place at the corporate level, supply chain diversity becomes non-existent, and tracking procurement, especially from the women-owned businesses, become impossible. So when you don't track the spend on the women-owned businesses, when you don't track the procurement opportunities that a business is giving to the women-owned businesses, it doesn't have any value, and we can't actually, justify and make case out of that the value chain or the corporate supply chain is inclusive. And when we discuss with the corporates, majority of the corporates said, the language barriers compounds the situation, and as many multinational buyers prefers English as the working language, and the language and the communication issues always, coupled with low confidence, further lead to poor understanding of the corporate buyers' requirements, expected quality standards, and the procurement process required to become a supplier. So this is one of the biggest challenge that the corporates faced. I also expressed during the discussions and all. And the buyers also have, tied with the corporate credit policies, that often adds, a lot of odds when the women-owned businesses are getting into a business transaction with them, because it requires sometimes a long-term credit recovery policies, and that puts a lot of pressures on the small and medium-sized women-owned businesses, and that kind of sometimes become a challenge for women-owned business to get into the contracts with the corporates. And the corporates also said that they are very much after the quality and of the service and product that they are sourcing from anybody. Of course, it's not the making the gender inclusive, the supply chain gender inclusive is not the field for good activity, right? So it has the business case, and And the study says that there's no evidence that none of the any corporate found that the products and services supplied by women-owned businesses are poor quality or that are rejected by the organizations when they are into the sourcing process. So there's no such evidence as such, but these all kind of myths that the corporates and the leaders are sometimes having. But as nobody is actually into the business, nobody is actually caring about what the benefits that can bring into the business. But in corporate perspective, they said that, the standardization certifications are the real concerns actually when they are get into the business, long-term engagement with women-owned businesses. Sometimes that women-owned businesses at the medium and the small scale are not actually to that standard to get those kind of standardization because they come up with a cost. But interestingly, 80% of the buyers said that they don't understand the gender inclusive sourcing, and the benefits of the gender inclusive sourcing and the supply diversity and inclusion. But all of them have expressed their keenness and interest to learn from, the organizations like WEConnect and the other actors about why gender inclusive sourcing is important to practice in the organization, and because they like it, at least they're trying to understand what's the business case for it. But the challenge is, the knowledge and the interest level and the policies of the organizations that put them like kind of a step back and not encouraging them to source from women-owned businesses. I mean, these are the challenges, the issues when corporates, in the corporate perspective, to make their, supply chain inclusive. But there are some other issues of the women-owned businesses perspective as well, right? So it is not the problem only from the corporate side, but also women-owned business have been facing problem in articulating their unique selling propositions, to the corporates and differentiate themselves from the competitors. And that also puts them into the fierce competition with their male counterparts for large corporations contracts in sunrise industries such as green economy, STEM incentive industries, and that have been giving a higher margins and great opportunities for business growth. And the other challenge is, majority of the corporates procurement opportunities and advertisements are targeted towards the highest and biggest chamber of commerce and associations that are led by men and managed by women, where the women-owned businesses don't have any affiliations with. I mean, the connections and networking issues are also one of the challenges from women-owned business perspective that hinders them to access those kind of business opportunities. And the other challenges we found that about the credit policies and the loan schemes that the women-owned businesses made available from the banks and the government schemes. The existing regulations make it sometimes difficult for women-owned business to access to those credit and loan schemes. And in some countries, male guarantors are often required as a kind of part of the application process. For an example, when the collaterals are not actually met, requirements are not met by the women-owned businesses. So these are kind of challenges in my perspective and also the research perspective that we found. But to make it a real change into the practice, or to see the sustainability in sourcing from women-owned businesses in the valuations, corporates, governments, and any of the non-government buyers that are actually involved in the large procurement process, they need to develop policy internally to promote supply diversity and inclusion within the organization, to source from women-owned businesses and increasingly working with them. Because not at all the women-owned businesses are ready to do business with the corporates, but still, if their capacity is developed to a certain extent, through the enrollment processes, maybe like, in the beginning, they can give small orders that encourage women-owned business to get into the business opportunities. And for an example, the corporate like IBM, for an example, I mean, they have a great policy. So they go for, identifying the micro and small businesses as well, as a part of their, gender inclusive sourcing steps. And they onboard them for small quantities. And over the period of time, they, when the IBM business grows, I mean, they also wanted to grow with the small businesses and develop their orders and make their capacities much more bigger. And there are many cases that, IBM has developed the capacity, and over 3-4 years, that company has become a big company, large businesses that has 100 crores turnover, 100 plus crores turnover, through very large orders and supply. So it's the process and the commitment that the large buyers and corporations and all the actors has to put in place. And it's very important that everybody need to understand it's not the feel for good activities. The gender inclusive sourcing has the real business case. It's really puts your company into the pathway to profit by broadening your supply chain and bringing in the innovation at a competitive price. That everyone should understand. I mean, these are the challenges I would like to just share my thoughts at the beginning, and I'm just pause here, and then let's get into the conversation when others also chime in their perspectives.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Eroshan, for setting the stage on that one as well to really, put the challenges out there. So I'm going to open up the conversation now to anyone who'd like to come in and, talk about some of the challenges that they have seen in creating a more gender responsive value chain, or even as a woman-owned business. Definitely would be great to hear from some more people from the table. Teresa, do you want to kind of maybe come in and quickly, based on your work with women entrepreneurs?
Sure, my work has been mostly focused in Nepal, but in my experience working with small businesses or even startup entrepreneurs, startup women entrepreneurs, I've seen a huge disparity on how businesses are done by male entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs. And I feel that, there's not a lot of acknowledgement in the different styles of working and the different approaches towards business and managing companies. So with respect to men entrepreneurs, I can see a lot of confidence of going out and approaching even founders, investors, companies with ease, even if they don't have a very strong business case or a very strong background. But with women entrepreneurs, they sort of try to perfect everything before they even go out and approach um, companies for their products or even investors. So I have seen that there is a aspect of I won't say confidence, but approach towards doing business where women are more perfectionist towards their business as well as product. Another challenge that I see with respect to women founders is is societal more. So when there are these examples, very tiny one, that when women entrepreneurs go out for sourcing their own material, the vendors want to know where is the owner. I mean, they are not really considered as a founder of the organization, and they really have to push through and talk about them being the owner and then move on to business. So there are constant hurdles like these which are not really talked about very openly. Another aspect of with respect to difference between women founder or women startup working as well as men startup working um, is their is their approach towards investors, or vice versa. When, as I said, that women go towards investors, they want to have a particular business model, and they're not very vocal about what they want from that deal. They are waiting for the offers to roll in, versus they putting in on the table what they are looking for in the in the deal. So I think these two approaches need to be more spoken about and need to be weaved in any kinds of programs or any kind of capacity building work that we do with women businesses. Another point is that I would want to talk about is just the policies or the infrastructure or the makeup of the way business happen. Businesses mostly happen through networking, but in our own personal programs we see that women do not linger around to network. Men sort of interact with each other over cigarettes, over chai after work, and that's how deals are formed. But women have to rush back home and take care. There was this very tiny conversation of why women are not there in offices or leave offices home early or do not stay in an organization, is because not having dustbin in the washroom to dispose their sanitary pad. And I mean, there are these minor cases where the infrastructure is not really optimum for women to focus on their businesses. If we take traveling in at night, a lot of meetings happen. A lot of meetings require you to travel to another place. Now, when a woman has to travel, she will think about what she can wear, what kind of mode of transport she's going to take, and the infrastructure does not align with the needs of the women. So yeah, there are these lot of differences, and the work needs to be two ways. One, from stakeholders who are employing or who are engaging with women founders, as well as from women who would want to take ahead their business to the next level. So
Great.
those are my 2 cents
Thank you. No, I
of
think very, very realistic, practical issues that women face, but also emotional and psychological barriers that they themselves have created for themselves. So I think it's both the external factors, but also the internal factors that you put really, really well, Teresa. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Yeah. Again, I would request if someone would like to bring Kanishka, do you want to bring in a new perspective of, your role, both in the NGO world as well as in Nestle, to kind of say what are the issues in supply chain diversity there?
Sure. Thanks, Karen. And it's a very impressive panel and members. So it's quite interesting. I was listening to it. I was taking notes. Thank you so much. Just to give a brief introduction, my name is Kanish Chaudhary. I'm the co-founder and chief impact officer at Samavesh Chamber of Commerce. It is India's first LGBTIQ and ethnic minority-led chamber of commerce that focuses on their economic inclusion in the ecosystem. I do that out of passion. My day work is that I manage regional procurement at Nestle. I've just joined them. Earlier, I was working in the same role at Kellogg's prior to that, Cargill. So pretty much a procurement person all lifelong, working on supplier diversity. That is where I picked up the diversity inclusion bit as well, because supplier diversity is a key enabler when it comes to diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging. Now, I'm new to Nestle, so I can't comment on the kind of work they have put in place for supply diversity. But then, yes, I can always talk about the earlier organizations and the amazing work they have done. Definitely, WEConnect had been a long-term partner with Kellogg's and with the other Fortune 500 clients that I had worked with. We actually have had that long association with WeConnect for Samavesh as well. So you guys do some amazing work, and we tend to look at you to learn things, what you have done, and try to replicate it, the learnings on the LGBTIQ spectrum as well. Because when I see women as a group, it is an intersection of different identities. A woman can be a lesbian, women can be a trans, women can be a woman with a different coming from a different economic background, etc., etc. So we are a sum total of our surroundings, right? And the different kind of intersectionalities that are there within the women segment itself, or the group itself, are so many, and they actually have cross sections within LGBTIQ as well. So what I find within the Indian business ecosystem is that even though diversity by itself is being driven, that is being driven to increase the numbers. Not much is being done from an inclusion, equity, and belonging perspective. Not specifically talking about supply chains. Having put that point across, especially talking about supply chains. The supply chain. First of all, there is some sort of disconnect between the people who are managing those supply chains within India, that it's a quota system. Supply diversity is a quota system versus a business imperative that is not clear to the person who's actually executing it. Of course, it comes from a very well thought strategy from either the global counterparts, if it is a multinational corporation, or if it is a local organization, the founders, but then that is not translated. The intent is not translated to the person who's executing it. So they don't know the kind of total value to the business that relationship brings in from a supplier who is a diversity supplier. So that is one. Second is that, of course, policies, as Eroshan has already mentioned, that policies are missing in terms of how to include diverse suppliers within the value chain, specifically women within the value chain, and also how to manage them. There is no set vendor development program. When they are in, they have to be developed. All the suppliers have to be developed. Women have to be developed as suppliers when they are in the supply chain, because this concept of equity, that everybody has a different journey. Everybody comes from a very different background, but they need to be be enabled by providing the necessary resources, and so that they can compete with the rest of them, and they can provide and add value. That is missing. A proper vendor development program for women diversity suppliers is missing in most of the corporates that I have seen. Now, of course, the business case when it comes to the impact on ROI, because nobody is measuring the impact on ROI. So it just becomes a good thing to do rather than a business imperative to do. So unless and until we know what the impact of our efforts is going to be on the ROI, on the bottom line, on the top line, we as businesses, they won't have, they will just consider it as a good thing to do, not as something that will bring more value to them, incremental value to them. We have seen that over the last 14, 15 years. I have seen that in my work. My mentors have seen, Deborah and Rupa and others have seen that when we have a diverse supplier base, overall, over a 5-year term, we have seen a 22% reduction in bottom line costs. So that is an impressive figure, not just for India, but also for other countries where we have worked. But that is something that can only be done if this whole concept of supplier diversity is managed well. The intent comes from the leadership. It is translated to the person who's executing it. There are policies in place. There is a development program in place to encourage these suppliers and to enable them, as well as there's a measurement matrix so that the business can map out what effort they are putting in and what results they are getting. And of course, there has to be a very strong feedback mechanism as well, from the suppliers all the way to the business and back. So that, I mean, it's there in bits and pieces. We are moving ahead, but then so certain organizations have actually excelled at it. I would say Kellogg has an excellent program in the US, which is trying to replicate across different geographies. So they are doing that, but then for each country, the intersectionalities are different, the flavors are different. So they have to work accordingly. In engineering, we have this concept called homologation of vehicles, right? So that is what I'm saying, homologation of policies. You know, you localize it according to the flavor of that country, the intersectionalities of that country, and the challenges of that country. And that is when they'll start seeing success. That's all I had to share. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Kanesh. I think, you know, what I hear you say is that the biggest challenge or the biggest enabler is making it intentional, you know, that it is not only, and from intentional moving into action, where you have clear policies laid down, clear action, and then of course a clear follow-up mechanism to ensure that, you know, what has been thought through, what has been put in place is actually happening, you know. I think that's what I hear you saying, and that's great. Thank you so much for sharing those points with us, because it definitely makes a big difference in terms of how these programs can be implemented and how do you actually become gender responsive, right? And that can be, and gender can take many shapes and many you know, dimensions to that as well. Great, thank you so much. So Upmanyu, I want to kind of take the conversation to a little bit about the rural flavor as well as women micro enterprise as well, because it's the complete chain, right? So please, over to you.
Yeah, yeah, thanks, Karan. And hi, everybody. Yeah, as we are working exclusively with women entrepreneurs, women farmers into the rural areas, and as I've heard all other speakers talking about what are the challenges and barriers, absolutely, either it's in urban or rural setup, those are very key to the thing. So primarily when we talk about the value chains or women-owned businesses, mostly women feel that there should be more into the manufacturing space, or they are doing something at home. Go to market or going outside, as Pranza also told, that women has a lot of logistical limitations and even cultural barriers, and that are created by their own for themselves, as you also mentioned, is more emotionally attached. So first they want to give priority to their family, children, and then give the time to business. But in business, it should be like focused. You cannot say it's like it's not a part-time job. If you are an employee, you can say like, I can work for 4 hours and rest time I can take a time for a family. But when you are going to be in a business, so it will be a like full-time task for you. And as men do like full-time and focusing more on business, giving less time but women are more parallelly focused on the family and those emotional attachments. So I think that in the rural set also, So most of the women we see like now, okay, now I'm at 35, 38, my kids are grown, and now I want to do something. But it doesn't happen into the business era. So from the day one, you will be passionate what you want to do and where you want to reach. So that we always see when we talk to women like, are you want to do business? They will say, oh, something is there, anything which I can do from my home? We are very happy to do that. But always we tell them like, for everything, selling is a key, or going to market is a key. I do something from my home means you are like again thinking yourself as a labor. It's not like entrepreneur. If you give me a raw material, I can produce something, and you take a responsibility of selling. But from last 2-3 years, we are focusing more on saying that if you learn the trick of selling, then only you can become an entrepreneur. Manufacturing can be done. Most of the entrepreneurs do the contract manufacturing. They won't manufacture anything. They only sell and become a big entrepreneurs and set up the big enterprises. So that mindset that whatever I want to do from my home. I don't want to step out from home, create a major barrier to become an entrepreneur. And as we see into the logistics or anything which is work related, mostly we see that it can be done by men. So either even selling something into the market, or driving the vehicle to take the goods from one place to another place, or some sort of, if you are putting a pulse mill, the operating a pulse mill, we just see that, oh, that can be done only by men. So we recently tried one project of training women into three-wheeler driving with the support of Bajaj. To get 30 women batch, we almost hunted for more than 500 people, because they feel like the rickshaw driving or three-wheeler driving is not our domain. So these are the specifying, like this domain is men specific and this domain is women specific, is also is there into the in our even either it's urban or rural setup. But I have more experience working from more than 28 years into the rural. So these are 3-4 important things. If women can break those barriers, of course, there are many successful women entrepreneurs also we seen in our area who are gone beyond those barriers and focus that I want to be a successful entrepreneur. Taking care of family is good. We are not. It's like not denied, but it's equally important that husband and wife will be taking care, and both are becoming a successful entrepreneur in their areas. So domain, logistics, sales is not our thing. Emotions to the family and business, taking it as a secondary, all are the things which are main challenges, which need to be, if we are able to break those barriers, I think we are able to create more and more successful women businesses or into the value chains as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Manu. I think, the word barrier is something we really need to think about, because they are there at every stage, as all our speakers so far have been telling us. So how do we get away from these barriers? I think I'm going to call Colonel Dev once again to come back into this conversation, because he's had a lot of success stories to share as well. So how do you really break those barriers and move it forward to get good results or better results? Over to you.
So thank you, Karen. The first barrier is how to get the women in, right? That's a barrier. So there are 2 or 3 feasibilities of this barrier. The first is the mindset and the awareness has to change. Let me give you a very personal example. My brother and sister-in-law in US are very successful, corporate sector people, highest positions in, the best airlines there and the best IT firm there. And they have raised 2 wonderful kids. So that is a mindset barrier. And the mindset barrier comes from 2 locations. One is your own mindset, whether you'll be able to do or not, your social compulsions or otherwise. Then is the atmosphere around you, whether your parents or your in-laws or anybody else is giving you that freedom, and how are you coping up with that? But today, the women are getting much bolder, and I'm seeing a lot of marriages happening today, in our second generation. The ladies are very clear that they have to pursue their own careers and dreams and entrepreneurial endeavors. The second is the barrier is about how to go about it. And unfortunately, even if you come as a novice in this field, and like Teresa said that men have got that acumen or confidence which she alluded to go and talk to financiers, get the money raised and everything else. I believe the women themselves today are quite learned and empowered. There are many people, women in the banking sector today who have done very well, risen to the topmost positions. They have left that particular job, so to say, and with whatever they have learned, they have started in investments and also entrepreneurial dreams. So the first thing is the mindset. Second is, how you give a woman the right atmosphere when she joins your organization. And let me give you both the flavors. First, the corporate and then the military, because there are two different divergent fields. Like Upamani was saying that, women are comfortable. They are looking at their household chores, and they can also do something from home. Transcripting, this, that, education is all going on. But you see the bigger firms, the Deloittes of the world, the KPMGs and everybody else who's today, PepsiCo in Gurgaon, they have shut down their offices, right? It's working beautifully well, equally well for all genders. There is no gender bias in terms of a performance. The adaptation to the technology, the adaptation to the new normal, how to interact with business, even if in business development, where in-person, face-to-face is very critical. I'm quite sure all genders are doing equally well in the assigned portfolios. So now the question is, like a Google today says that, okay, they were burning a few billions in getting you to office, so they are now okay for you and certain sections of your divisions to work from home continuously now as a concept. We have to evolve. So an organization also have to evolve to see where all you can make a woman get accounted for and work proactively, but at the same time cater to needs. All the HR policies in the corporate sector, not only to the women, but also to the men. The gender bias is not there, and they give some kind of paternal leave also these days to men for some time. So you are looking at a world when learning from the societal needs, the HR policies in a particular geography are changing. The mindsets of the employers are changing. And that is the way to usher in a change by making them comfortable. The second thing in the organization is, as soon as a woman is enrolled, give her a little bit of a bulk period, if I may say, and in that bulk period where she is not totally accountable for things, she learns on the job. Give her the necessary tools, the bandwidth, and also the skill set. Because see, like men as well, like us, if I step out from the uniform and come to a corporate sector, you can very well say, what the hell is he doing in the corporate sector, right? But there are skill sets involved. So you have to develop sans gender, these skill sets. And if it takes more time on a particular level to raise the confidence level of any gender, and why I'm saying gender diversity, because there are many genders today. So it's for any gender, there should be no bias. So we'll have to evolve as a society. So there will be some Scandinavian country which evolves faster than us. Maybe an Indian state of Bihar will take 50 more years to do that. But I don't mind my saying Bihar, but I just took that name. Okay, so no bias towards Bihar as well, because a lot of front end women leading NASA are from that state as well. So when you see this entire spectrum, it will be very nice for this diaspora which is here today from all across the globe to carry this messaging first to your households. Enable your sister, your younger sister, your mother. Your mother has lived a dream, right? She has put the children all in the marketplace to do their profession. Why can't you cultivate a sense of being an entrepreneur in your mother first, right? Try to get on the social media platform, become an influencer, right? So you have to see that perspective, how to grow within first. And as the family goes stronger with this concept, the society will get stronger. The state will go stronger, the country will go stronger, and that is the way it will expand. So this mindset awareness and how to, I'm not saying cajole, don't cajole any gender. You have to be very, very specific of the requirement of an organization, and they have to fit the bill, right? If we put women to the harm's way in combat, we have to give, we are supposed to give as military people the requisite training, weaponry to do so. I can't say that you will be in hand-to-hand combat the best. Whereas in martial arts, people excel. Right, most of the schools I went to US in my last leave, when I went to those small places where children were getting trained in martial arts, there was no gender bias, right? So they were all very cutely wearing those black and blue belts and talking about it. So the world is changing. And it is more for people who are educated like you and me to carry this message, because not many people, and women especially, and maybe the other marginalized the genders, are very confident to come upstream and ask for a job. You go to the streets of Delhi, right? Transgender, when you meet them, they're okay to take a small amount of money or food from you, right? They ask for money. Why can't they be equitable to do a job? They have the right amount of EQ and IQ and the brains to do it. I'm quite sure if our education system nurtured them well, and that is where education is prime, Karen. I believe in it. For the last 20, 25 years, I may have been in any portfolio as a citizen of the country, but education, and unfortunately for many decades, India has never focused on the right quantum and a compulsory education. And that is why we are not able to stand up. That is why we're not able to make the right choices. And that is why when we see big people, big companies, and big charades around us, we go into a cocoon. And that is much more, affecting a mindset of somebody who comes from a classification of a gender where it takes a lot of effort to even step up, leave rise alone, right, even to step up the platform. So I believe we owe it to all of us to cultivate in the right spirit. Have no biases, please, because everybody's a human being, right?
Absolutely.
Human being. You had no choice to become a man or a woman or a transgender or anybody else, right? So choices are yours today to lead the way and influence the world the way you want to and contribute. And you should have the right to do so. So while we say freedom of expression is there for citizen, why can't that be the freedom of getting a job, freedom of being an entrepreneur? So it has to be quite proactive and progressive in nature, in thought first, and then I'm quite sanguine. You today see that the company in which Mr. Sinha is the CEO, his wife, Miss Sinha, I think I forgot her name with V. Look at her developing the solar sector, and she's not on anybody's bandwagon to have married anybody. She's playing such a critical role in the CSR of that company, and she encourages women to the hilt. You see, Mrs. Murthy, right? You take any names. I know you talk about the vice president of US, a lady, the World Bank. You go anywhere. Where is that niche level where there is no woman? There is. You see the parliaments today of the world of democracies, right? So and even if I want to talk about a dacoit, there was a Fulan Devi, right? She was better than most. So
that's another one.
Any spectrum, I am telling you, the right tools, the skill set, and the mindset can always carry any human or a citizen ahead. So that's my two short point, and I would like to actually hear more from women on this particular show.
I don't know. Our women are being very quiet, I think, and we need to change that. But I want to quickly link this to also about women-owned businesses and how this really has a big impact. The more women who are there in the workforce, okay, the more women who are there in decision-making positions will make sure that there are more gender-sensitive policies created. I think that's the one big point I do want to kind of link with what you are saying, because we have seen that when there are more women, women in decision-making positions within the corporate, operations, that will have a direct impact on policies that will encourage more and more women-owned businesses in the supply chain. So I think that again becomes extremely important for us to keep that in mind, and why that is an important thing from an outcome perspective, right? So I'm going to invite next is Amit Jain, who's a co-founder of Mitti Ke Run. And he actually is a social venture working towards generating livelihood for women through an e-commerce platform. Actually, we also had Suvira from UNESCAP with us, the UN ESCAP, but unfortunately she had to drop out because of an emergency that suddenly came up, so we could not hear from her. But which is another e-commerce initiative by them. But in any case, Amit, over to you, and please let us know a little bit more about your work.
Hi, thank you, Kiran, for inviting me, and Thaira for giving me an opportunity to be here. I'm Amit. I'm from Pune, and we run this organization like a social venture named Mitti Ke Rang. In English, it means colors of soil. And to give a brief about that, like we are an e-commerce marketplace wherein the women entrepreneurs, and it's an only platform for women entrepreneurs from across India, be it rural, urban, and whatever product they sell, we onboard them on the website and we help them with the tech and marketing part. Now, why we started that? Because, and like you rightly said a few minutes back, that how women entrepreneurs, if you given a small opportunity to them, like how everything can change. So, I come from that background because I lost my father at a very early age, and my grandfather opened a shop for my mom. So within that, because of that small business, which was run by my mom. So that really helped us to, cross the entire, the younger generation before we went out to the job. And my family helped a lot. So with that insight, when I got a job in Pune, we thought, let's do something for society. And wherein Mitti Karan got invented. And, because of that, we thought if my mom got a small business opportunity, because of that, we are here, what we are today. So let's give back. Then we just started with Pune, the manufacturing unit, where we used to make paper bag, tea light candles. And after that, I backpack across India to meet more entrepreneurs. Like around 80 cities, I backpacked to meet a lot of entrepreneurs. We had a lot of meetups going on. So one insight or one learning, the common learning from across India, what we got is they want to do business, but the bigger problem is tech, marketing. They don't have much knowledge how to do that. So we thought we already have a platform. Let's open it for the entire India, wherein we started rolling out application. And luckily now we have around 300 to 400 plus entrepreneurs on the platform. And we have like 50 plus categories, 2000 plus products. So that has been a journey. And just to give a small insight, so one of the product example, Ragi Laddu millets. So when we onboarded that product, we really didn't know much about the product. But in 5 months, we literally sold around 2 million, like 20 lakh rupees laddu. So that entire journey was so enriching for us, when we used to talk to entrepreneurs, okay, we did that. We all collaboratively, so we used to market, she used to manufacture. And, the intention was to onboard and one entrepreneur in the beginning. When she got more orders, she actually employed more entrepreneurs in the local area. That has been a ripple effect. And on the platform, we have an entrepreneur from an age of 17, when she started her business at the age of 14, till 70. So this range of entrepreneurs we have from 24 states of India. And it has been so diverse, like, the product which I haven't heard of. Example, the product made of water Haken, the product made in the South, the dolls and everything. So everything was so amazing for us. And that was, been a journey. And what we are trying to do now in the future is trying to ship the products across India. Starting like this month, we're going to be starting raising grants and the funding for entrepreneurs to, build the capacity. Because when we got so many orders for Ragi Laddu, literally our entire team didn't sleep for 10 days. It was in a 10 days period when we got so many orders. Wow. So the production was there, all the communication was there. Wherein we realized that before getting more orders, let's have some capacity building for the entrepreneurs, the tech, the local team and everything. And just to give a word out, any entrepreneur, in any category, be it urban, be it rural, be it any product category, we are more open to onboard them. Definitely, we don't guarantee any sales because, we never know. But what we do is we launch 3 to 4 products every day. And that's how we get to know which product has a market reach. So yeah, that's what you do at Mitti Karan. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amit. That's so really inspiring and also personal, because it just shows therefore the passion and commitment. So that's really amazing. And thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah. So next, I'd like to invite Yashashri Rai. I hope I pronounced that right. If I made a mistake, my apologies. We would definitely like to hear from you. She's the founder of WEConnect, the Green Wave, and a youth gender activist at UN Women. Yashashri, over to you, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure we all want to know and make sure we say it right.
Hi, Karen. Thank you so much. You can just call me Yashashri. So that's not much of a problem. So I am the founder of WEConnect, the Green Wave, and WEConnect, the Green Wave, and I am based in Nepal. So maybe my perspective is a little different from everyone. Not very much different, but definitely a little different from everyone present here. First of all, what we need to understand, I think, is that whenever we talk about gender, especially in a developing country like Nepal, we definitely need to know that our rights for women have come very later than earlier, not only in Nepal, but all around the world. So our voting rights, our education rights have all come slower than what's come to male. And in terms of more diversity for the LGBTI rights and everything, they still struggle here. So So having all these problems said, we need to know, I think there are two problems like the Colonel Rohit also mentioned. One is definitely changing the perspective and mindset of people. That's the first and most important thing. But then I also think that having a policy change is one of the most important thing that should actually come every level in terms of any institutions or any institution, be it private, be it NGOs, be it INGOs, or be it the government level itself. I think the policy change is very important. Like for example, in Nepal itself, our constitution has given 33% rights to women in every sector. Like be it in the parliament, there has to be 33% women. Now that reserves rights to women to voice out whatever problems they have. So that now brings the voices of diverse women from every sector also. I think that's one of the major things we need to know. And I think to solve this, we also need to understand that because the literacy rate or any rights have come to women later, the skill we have is a little different from what males have. So the hard skills we learn in education or be it in institutions is not as much as skilled mostly. But then we have a different skill and that needs to be respected. I think that's one of the things that we need to know. But then at this moment, we are more skilled, and our hiring policies also involves like only for women policies and everything. I think all those needs to be considered. That's it.
Great, thank you. No, absolutely. And again, as I said, a woman's voice, which is really important for us as well to understand the ground realities and how we spoke. Even Amit mentioned that the multiplier effect, right? That every woman who understands and takes up, and kind of creates a voice for herself, also then brings a voice for many others who are there. So thank you very much for sharing that. We have Mr. Kumar Iyer, who has posted quite a few things. Mr. Iyer, maybe you can tell us what are some of the solutions, the capabilities, strategies that people need to implement. As I know, you said no need of talking too much, we have to do. So what is it that they should be doing, which you think will change the status quo and make things better?
Yeah. Karen, I would like to share some research that we did at the Value Research Center.
Sure.
We looked at the 6,000 largest corporates in the world and the 16 universally accepted reporting standards for sustainability. And supply chain is an integral part of sustainability. Less than 1% of the corporates had a written policy on gender diverse supply chain. Less than 1%. And I'm being very generous here because I cannot give a percentage below 1. So it's that. Second, every single reporting standard asks for a gender diverse supply chain. Yet, all these corporates have passed or been certified by those certification agencies, which means they are greenwashing on a mass scale. The solution is very simple. I mean, make a policy, write it down, and stick to it in letter and spirit. 2, if you are so concerned about having women or gender diverse supply chains, no programs exist, you make a program. You can pay for it out of your CSR fund, out of your social responsibility fund. You can pay for it any way you want, or just think of it as your contribution to society. Why do you keep expecting someone else to do this for you? If you are so serious about it, do it yourself. Put down a policy saying 10% of my business will happen only with MSMEs, will happen only with women-run organizations, will run only with minority community organizations. What stops you from making a policy? And if those communities are marginalized, if those communities do not have the capability, run programs to develop those capabilities. I mean, corporates will find it very easy to say, oh, that's not our job to run programs. Then don't come on platforms and say, oh, we would love to have them. But unfortunately, they don't exist. If they don't exist because you don't want them to exist, work towards it. I mean, it is your responsibility just as much as anyone else's. This is exactly what we found out in our research, that they talk about it, but they're not interested in following up on their talk. That's all I had to say. Thank you, Carol.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Incidentally, Kanishk has asked for that research report, so please feel free to share it with us. I'm sure many would benefit from having to know about it and how it has been done and what. So do share that for us, and also on our resource center in the socials. We would be very happy to share that with our wider community. Yeah, I see that Anupama has raised a few points on. I guess in response to Mr. Iyer, but also beyond that. So, Anupama, do you want to say something? Would you like to come in?
Hi, Karan. Thanks. I just logged in, so I probably missed a few important points. But from what I was hearing, I was completely in sync. I've always wondered why corporate social responsibility funds aren't channelized towards, diversity initiatives. And I really do mean diversity initiatives across the board. I don't mean just gender, but yes, gender from that perspective is an easier and a low-hanging fruit to implement. Because maybe for society, for people, it's the most easily acceptable one, as opposed to all the other, segments of diversity in corporate India. I've also always wondered about that. And if as Mr. Iyer shared, it's a reporting requirement, then we should be mandating it and we should be pushing for it pretty much just like we push for the prevention of sexual harassment law and compliance, and demand annual reporting, demand, and also apply sort of levy fines to organizations.
Yes, I mean, that is one of the possible solutions, one of the possible strategies, because of course, 1% is real. I mean, it's non-existent practically, right? That's what we're really saying. So, so there are maybe a very handful of corporates who are working, and some of them are the members of WEConnect International. I have been a part of some of the sessions where they have presented some of their policies and also results. And especially, I unfortunately she couldn't make it because it's Chinese New Year, so a lot of them obviously busy with personal priorities. And I remember her talking about some of the programs that they initiated long before the word diversity and women empowerment and all that was in place, and it inspired me. I'll be very honest with you. Not that I'm saying that all corporates have things like that, but having stories like this definitely tell other corporates that this is possible. I think what happens a lot with compliance, and sometimes yes, that is the solution, but what happens also with compliance is then it is never followed in letter and spirit. You see, that's the bigger problem. It becomes a checklist item. So is that the only solution? I'm the moderator, I'm the facilitator, so I'm not giving any answers out here. I'm simply putting it on the table for people to think a little bit more and come back with some more thoughts and answers on this. And I hope some of you will come back into the conversation after thinking that through, because we have to start moving towards a collaboration piece as well and look at how we can do that. Madhav from SSP has raised his hands, and I have tried to give him the rights both to come as a panelist as well as to speak, but I'm not heard, and now he's disappeared. Dolly, yeah, Girija, yes, Girija, please come in. Please come in.
Not able to come in.
Okay. Please speak.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Can I?
Okay.
Do you want me to? I can move you into. Okay. Yeah. Already. Yeah. Great. Okay. Go ahead. What happened?
No, she's just been moved to the panelist.
Right. Okay. And I think we also have Sitaraman who's put a post in the chat box. We can bring. Would you like to say a few words? Yeah, Girija, go ahead, please. You're on mute. You're on mute.
it is, we are aware that, okay, we want women to go ahead, and it is very clear that her mindset itself is a barrier for her to go ahead. Number one. Number two, we also know that organizations are not intentionally making any changes or any preferences to see that there is a gender based approach, to see that there is more promotion or more choices are given to organizations or to source products from women. They're not doing that. Okay. But I feel in the policy level or in the infrastructure level, also we can make a lot of changes. Say, for example, when women travel, if they have, there are hotels where they can specify one particular floor for women executives. It gives them safety. It gives them a feeling of safety. If there are women taxi drivers, there are, but then they charge double the prices, double the price. It should not happen. In fact, they should charge less. They should have the women taxi drivers. They are very good at, they have even learned martial arts, but then they are told to charge double the money, and then they are given very little. So again, there is exploitation there that is happening.
If I may interject here, I'm all for making women independent, making women empowered. We should defend ourselves. We should do self-defense. But I'm, sometimes, just very few times, I lose my patience with it, and I will be kind to myself and do that today, because Karen has asked me to come in as a speaker, not as a moderator. Is that I'm done with it. We need men to sort of shape up and not do the stuff that we have to protect ourselves from them.
I know.
When we talk about smart
I totally agree, but until it happens, that is
it's not going to happen unless we sort of demand it. And just yesterday in a smart cities discussion, I was asking about, it's great to have these fancy swipe cards and digital transportation and whatnot, but do we have the roads? Do we have safe places? Do we have well-lit streets for women to, to the last mile connectivity, which they call? Without that baseline, we can even forget about a conversation on smart cities. So I just hope that, people who are working in these areas are, it's important to put a gender lens on everything we do, even every breath we take, pretty much.
Absolutely.
No, Anupama, I think you're absolutely right. But I think also and by the way, Anupama, because you did come in a little late, I must tell you, we had some amazing men on this panel who are all working towards this thoughts, and some who are doing research, some who are part of the, corporate circles, and some in support organizations. So, there is a lot that is here with a lot of enlightened men, which is the great news. And that's exactly what I started with, that gender cannot be about something that only women do. It's about both men and women doing it together, right? Really actually working together side by side. And it's not also about one being better than the other, both ways, whether it's women or better than men or men better than women. It's really about us getting our equal opportunity and having that, I think also the safe space that you mentioned, to be who we are and aspire and have our aspirations met. But I think what Girija is also trying to point out, and actually this is not an off-spoken topic, and I to some degree would agree that it needs to be highlighted, is that in the process of women empowerment, are they also being exploited? So I think that's a very valid point, and we need to be cautious about it, right? So while of course I completely agree where Anupama says that ultimately it's about changing the ecosystem, which unfortunately is driven more by men. Very big proof is right now our roundtable, right? That the decision makers are men in most cases. Then how will that change? But at the same time, as Girija said, there can be enough women who could exploit the situation in ways which are not very
healthy.
Unhealthy. Absolutely. I totally agree with you, Girija. Yeah, Teresa, you have your hand up. I think the women are just getting into the conversation. Men, you better start putting your thinking cap on and start coming in, yeah? If you want to have a word sideways in. Teresa, over to you. And I did want to bring Sita Raman in because I've seen a couple of posts. So yeah, maybe after Teresa, yes?
Yep, sure.
So I wanted to sort of bring back the conversation to between corporate sourcing from women entrepreneurs, because we have sort of diverted to gender imbalances in the society, and there is a lot that we can talk about. The point that I wanted to drive is, or want to speak more about, is when corporates are working with any kind of vendors, they're looking for quality, they are looking at business, they are not going to talk about how to make the space equitable, because for them the important thing is the bottom line, which is profits. So I wanted to bring in have a conversation about how we can make it more profitable for corporates to onboard more women entrepreneurs, and what can be done about it, because that's a question that I've been thinking, that how can we incentivize companies to onboard more women vendors, or pay special attention to the gender diversity in their supply chain.
Very true, absolutely. And looking, that is the key, right? Diversity in the supply chain, where we are saying what is happening down the line. I think the problem is that corporates are not looking deep enough to understand what that supply chain opportunities are like. The business case for that somehow it seems to be stuck at the employee level. Like, everything is about employees, encouraging more and more employees in the women in the employee workforce, but they are not beginning to look, and I would say both ways, forward linkages and backward linkages, as customers as well as, I don't want to make this a roundtable on women empowerment. This is not that's not the intention, but I think, it's still just to kind of expand the horizons of the conversation and the discussion. I'm kind of saying that we really need to look at women in the supply chain as suppliers, vendors, and also, of course, as customers. Aroshan, I'll just come to you in a minute. I'll go to Sita first, and then
Yep.
you, if you don't
Yep.
mind. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Great.
Thank you so much, Karen. I'm actually a panelist for tomorrow's conversation, but this is a topic which is so close to me. So quick introduction. I work in a corporate company based out of Mumbai and lead the digital transformation front. Incidentally, I'm also wearing another hat, which is on diversity and inclusion. And that's why this specific topic is so interesting and amazing views shared by so many of these panelists. I just would take maybe 2 minutes here. I'm not sure about the supply chain part that you're discussing, but definitely a lot of corporates have realized in terms of how important diversity and inclusion, as a key pillar is. And without taking names, many organizations are specifically arranging employment opportunities dedicated to, give more opportunities to people falling in with respect to LGBT or otherwise. So those sort of dedicated, sessions, job sessions are being arranged by a lot of these corporates. So it's not as bad, but as I said, it might not be distributed across industry. So that's a challenge we all need to accept, and hopefully there could be some solution out there. And the second point, one of the panelists did mention about transgender and accepting them into the community, very important. And I have to be honest to admit, we are all being brought into a society, the culture that we live in, those stigmas, if I use the word, I don't know if the right apt word to use. I think these have to change. And someone mentioned about the mindset change and the acceptance of people, the inclusivity that comes along with it. And that's where I wanted to highlight that education system in India is definitely changing. I'm not going to say that this is going to be as transformative to ensure everybody is inclusive, but definitely we are seeing change. And I have to say this, sometime back, a couple of days back, my son was doing a research on how do we provide more opportunities for LGBT community. Where else, you can start that mindset change from the schools. And it's good to, let all these panelists know that it is happening, the change is happening, and hopefully we'll get there where we'll have an inclusive society. Back to you, Karen.
Thank you so very much. I think we need to go with that positive voice. I thank you very much for bringing that in, because if we are not positive, if it becomes a blame game, if it becomes a fight, this is not a war, right? This is not a war against each other. It's a war against concepts. It's a war against mindsets. It's a war against the conditioning, centuries of conditioning. And I think the more we separate it from the gender we are, the better we'll be able to tackle it objectively and constructively. So I think that's the message which I hear you say, Sita, and I think that's amazing. Thank you. Aroshan, over to you, please.
Yeah, thanks. Just one point I wanted to make it here. As Teresa said, the problem is, is about the gender inclusive sourcing, right? So when you look at the gender equity in the workplace, it's kind of like continuously improving, and there are many work actions and organizations are working for it. But the problem lies majority in the side of the supply chain when women on business are getting into that. So I mean, that is the core issue that I think that we are discussing today. I mean, when I deal, day to day with a lot of corporates around South Asia, I mean, the new corporates that are not as a member of WEConnect International as well, to talk about the benefits of gender inclusive sourcing, the first thing that they come out is, what's the difference between CSR and gender inclusive sourcing? So why do you worry about that? So what makes that difference? So they don't simply understand, right? So the challenge is that the majority of our businesses, the larger corporates in the the South Asian countries and Southeast Asia, is the lack of understanding of the business case for gender inclusive sourcing. So as I said, I mean, when I was talking in the beginning as well, so the corporates has to understand the business case, how this is going to improve their profitability. So whether this kind of gender inclusive sourcing or making their supply chain diverse is going to put their company on a pathway to profit by broadening their supply chains, by bringing in more innovations that the women-owned businesses can come in, giving. I mean, when we work with a lot of our women-owned businesses in the network, WeConnect has about 14,000 women-owned businesses around the globe as our members. As a registered women-owned business in our network, and they are in almost all the sectors, even in the STEM category. They are in the IT business, and they are in the transportation, logistics. Even there are very competitive, high-level businesses that are working, registered with WeConnect, and are kind of like doing business with the larger corporates, and in terms of real money transaction is happening. So there are opportunities are there. So the problem is about what's the lacking part in this, the supply and demand. So the majority of the cases that we handle in terms of women-owned businesses side, I mean, they don't simply understand the value of standardization, improving their standards and internal procedures and controls. But even when corporates make a decision to do a business with the women-owned business, they are not going to compromise the quality. Right, so they need the same quality, quantity, and everything after sales services. It's going to be the similar business, competition process as of the other common world. What makes women apart from this is, the companies has to make a policy to source from women-owned businesses for certain criteria, or maybe at least include. I mean, for an example, one of the corporations that we work with, I mean, they have a policy that for every RFP they send out, they should have at least 6 women-owned suppliers to be competitive. Right. So that and if you take the 100% of that contract as a value, at least 35% of that should go to a women-owned business or diverse supplier. So that kind of a policy has to come in. It's not about talking about a few $100,000. It's just like $1 million transaction. I mean, that sets apart, and that's how it's bringing a value into the business and the globe GDPs. I mean, for just one of the statistics shows that I mean, if the business is going to be inclusive, by 2030, the total value of the business transaction can be equal to 25% of Singapore's GDP. So you can see the opportunity that in front of us. I mean, so the all actors that are working here today, discussing in the panel today, has to think about it and kind of pushing the corporates and the women-owned business to come to a common platform that connects both of them together to get into the business transaction. That's my quick point on that. Thank you.
No, I completely agree with the points you raised, Hiroshan. In fact, I'm sure there must be some representation from these organizations in this panel. Organizations like Amazon, Walmart, they have kind of, they're working actively on improving the supplier diversity. I know they have programs in which they bring in women entrepreneurs. And you're right, quality cannot be compromised, which I think then becomes a full circle, because we also need enough organizations, enough maybe incubators who want to, invest in women and even train the women. Because, I don't know if you remember seeing Facebook's statistics a couple of years ago about, women through Facebook, home entrepreneurs made over $1 billion or some such figure. So imagine if we were to harness this power and actually train it, teach them business plans, teach them processes, and incubate some of these businesses. Imagine the output that can come, and, tie-ups can happen. But yes, because the wherewithal lies with corporates, I think the proactive, they need to be the ones who need to, be proactive and do this.
Thanks, Anupama, for adding that in. And of course, Eroshan, thanks for sharing about the members, because I think those are a great starting point. And I think Kanish also mentioned that they were also a member, and I think that's the starting point, right? Creating those role models, creating those case studies that will kind of push people to understand the value. And then, of course, without making a compromise, still create the programs like what Kumar Iyer mentioned, create those programs that will build the capacity so that they can finally ensure that they have more and more women entrepreneurs either applying for RFPs or actually gaining those contracts that will allow them to get their place in the supply chain, I guess. So, we are coming to the end of our time. So I just want to very quickly say that we would love to hear more and more about collaboration. Of course, WEConnect is one big opportunity for collaboration. They have their registration process for women entrepreneurs, which I think will be great to look at. We also have Amit, but I just want to make everybody start thinking from that point of view of collaboration. Also, if anybody has not yet spoken till now, I'd like to give them the first prerogative and right to say if they have anything else. Otherwise, forever hold your peace. We gave you a chance. And then, of course, move towards the close of the roundtable. Dolly, I just want to check. Would you like to say?
Yeah, I'm here. I just wanted to tell you that there are 2 government purchase programs. You must have heard, I was just looking for the details, but there is a central public sector program, government purchase programs, under which all public sector undertakings and ministries and departments are supposed to take 25% of the requirements of goods and services from MSEs, that is micro and small enterprises. And within this 25%, 3% has been reserved for women-owned MSEs. So that this program has been going on for years. Now,
25%.
25% of their overall procurement.
No, Dolly, it's 4%.
This is government
4%.
purchase program.
No, I know. Yeah, all PSUs have to do, it's 4%. And out of 4%, which is for MSMEs, okay, overall MSMEs, 2.5% is for women. So yeah, that's.
I don't know that this is what the government purchase program is, PPP. And the other one is the GEM, Government E-Marketplace.
Yes.
Now, under GEM, they have not kept anything separate for women. But there they bring the buyers and government buyers, of course. But even the private enterprises are, onboarded on this Government E-Marketplace, GEM. It is called G, small e and M.
Yes.
And under that, there is price discovery. And you can find out the supplier who is giving you at the lowest price. And you can connect to the buyer and the seller.
That's right.
But that's also I'm saying is that, there is a partiality. They generally believe in, going to the larger enterprises.
Yeah, so, I must.
That platform is doing well, I'm told. Many women have onboarded on that.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I must share one experience that we had some time back where we said, I was telling the same thing, and this was, I'm not going to take names or departments, but it was a government thing. And we said, how can we encourage more women buyers, kind of into this system? And they said, milte hi nahi hai. We don't get only any.
Yeah.
So I said, so then tell me what is the product you're looking for and let us see whether we can do.
Yes.
So he gave me such a difficult product. I'm not going to even take the name of that because again, it looked very biased. But I asked him, I said, okay, I said, fine. I went and I said, let me look first. First, I didn't think of it as difficult. Okay, I went and I looked around and I came back and asked me, I said, sir, you asked me, I'll say in English just for the benefit of maybe some people. I said, so you asked me to get a buyer, a woman enterprise that would probably be able to supply this item to you. Please tell me how many men are supplying this to you? And the honest truth was none. Which means that he had set me up for failure.
Yeah.
He actually set me up for failure, right? Because he wasn't very
your example is amazing because, just flip this to the other side, which is, let's say, the corporate side. When you talk about diversity recruitment, this whole phrase around diversity recruitment, same thing happens. The most difficult positions they want the women for. So,
I would like to say that what about service suppliers? There are so many women who are in service suppliers, and that service suppliers feel always neglected.
Absolutely.
Whether it is a startup service, they said, no, service where there is non-linear growth. I mean, we want non-linear growth. We don't want linear growth. So services mein maine pucha tha, to nahi, your growth is not going to be exponential the way we expect.
Absolutely. I think that is
what
a
about
very
service
good
suppliers? Why don't we do something about these? Like, tourism services or trade services, financial services. So many women are into it.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on,
out.
yeah. We tend to focus more on products and don't really
and
look
within
at
products, of course, women-oriented products are there, like handicrafts. They have to go to women for handicrafts.
Right.
So under GEM, they can keep a few areas mainly for women-oriented products or women manufactured products.
True. Completely get that. Thank you.
This is a policy decision which we have to really, try to give exposure to.
Absolutely right. Absolutely. Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. So as I said, we are coming to a close. So if anybody else wants to add to the conversation, offer anything from a collaborative point of view, most important is that for us, of course, that perhaps we can work together. I can see from the chat that there is a lot of let's meet offline, let's talk offline, which is also great. We do want the conversation. It never ends over here. We do want to have post-event conversations continuing. So I'm glad to see that as well. But at the same time, maybe Eroshan, would you want to talk a little bit about the WEConnect registration program? I think that'd be nice so that people can also take benefit of that, because that could be one of the collaborations that we have, right?
Yeah. Thanks, Karan. So WeConnect has a global database which we call We Community. It's accessible from our website, and there are 14,000 plus women-owned businesses around the world registered as a suppliers, and we have 150 plus larger corporates as a member for WeConnect International. And those member buyers are always accessing our database to find suppliers whenever they need, whenever they have RFP and opportunities. So when the women business are registered in our database, when the corporates are posting the RFP opportunities directly onto the platform, so that sends the notification directly to the matches. So the women-owned businesses get increased opportunity to understand the business opportunities, and they can directly participate in the RFP. And otherwise, corporates also reach out to us directly, and we directly organize, virtual or in-person matchmaking events, meet the buyer events, which targeted for specific RFPs and the purpose. So there are many opportunities that women-owned businesses can benefit from WeConnect International Network. It includes the capacity building trainings, business connections, and we have, the 14,000 plus women-owned business around the world is itself a huge power, right? So there are many transactions that happens within women-owned businesses beyond boundaries as well. So there are many success stories. You can learn about that in our website. So I'm encouraging you and your community, and if you know other women-owned businesses, to take advantage of this platform. And as you know, WeConnect is a not-for-profit organization, so we don't make any profit out of any of the transaction, any of the business. This is just for good sake and our commitment towards driving more money to the hands of women-owned businesses. And I thank Karan for giving us this opportunity as well. And we work closely with IDOBRO and the Rise Infinity Foundation in India to take support more women-owned businesses. And in fact, they are our training partner to be implementing a series of capacity building trainings for women-owned businesses, especially to improve the business readiness. We have done surveys to understand what are the areas that women-owned businesses are lacking in terms of doing business with the corporates, larger corporates. So we have developed a training series, and Karan will be spearheading that training series, and we look forward to do a lot of things in India as well as in North South Asia in that front. Yep.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Eroshan. In fact, it's a 4-country project. So India, Sri Lanka, Maldives, and Bangladesh. Yes.
Great. Yes. Correct.
Sorry. It took me a second to remember that. Okay, yeah, so very happy to partner with anybody and collaborate, because that's the way we always work in everything we do. I think we are kind of coming to a close, as I said. Colonel Dev, any few last words that you think you'd like to say? Someone has their hand up.
No, I've spoken enough, but I will just take a cue from what Lady Anupama Kapoor ji said. And I understand that she has expressed, very lucidly what the issue is at hand and how we have to counter it. There is no argument there, Anupama ji, and I echo your sentiments completely. But I always have a hope, and the hope is not around the Pope this time, because Pope can do whatever in Vatican, but we in India have to create our own hope and journey. And I think it's time. And with so much of ideation going through, with so much of sort of insights coming through in this webinar, the only thing which is left is to how to carry forward the inspiration part. So I believe in the 3 I's, and ideation, insights, and inspiration. And let's carry it as an inspiration, because whatever somebody has said in this forum as a challenge, accept it. Because if you're going to negate it, the challenge is not going to be addressed properly. And always look at not only positive stories, but there will be many stories in which people fail. Genders without a bias fail. Males fail, females fail, transgenders fail, everybody fails, right? And that sentiment, if it is more ingrained in our education curriculum in society, both together, I think maybe we can curate a better future for the next gen, because I can't go by the biases my parents or grandfather had. And I certainly don't want to impose my biases on the next generation. So we are a little more aware, more educated. A lot of societal changes, LGBT rights, everything globally has undergone a change in our times. A lot of HR issue changes have gone through in our times. A lot of policy initiation has gone through in our times. Even the parliament and legislative assembly in today in the country with women faces has undergone a change through our times. We have seen so many women at the helm of affairs in corporate sector during our times. We have seen ushering of women into the military during our times. So I think we are living in very good times. Ours is a generation which has seen right from a phone being picked up like this to a bigger, like a SATCOM kind of a mobile phone, and now to smartphones. We are a generation, we have seen the change, we have been the change. And I think this is one more critical aspect which needs to be addressed without inhibition. Personally, there is a lot of inhibition around this topic itself. So such a pleasure that, at least we talked about it. Otherwise, it is just closed in our brain and we think our way and we go our way. We can't make the difference. And unless we collectively come as a response mechanism for this particular ailing of a society, it will be difficult to change. So I can say whatever, fluently and say the day is over. But unless I put my, words into action at some level at home or outside or abroad, it doesn't make any sense. So for all of us, you all have inspired us today. I heard Dolly ji about the policy part and everybody else. So the ladies spoke today, and that was good. And I agree with somebody when they said that, the men need to shape up first. I agree. Men not only need to shape up, but men also need to understand, that adage of behind every successful, man, there is a woman. I think it's a misnomer, because it starts from your mother, who is giving actually you a kick in life, right? So it's not about cajoling. That woman is not very empathetic always. So all mothers have coaxed us to become the men we are. And I believe we owe it to those mothers, the sisters and the wives we have, to make sure that they pass on such kind of, good progressive thoughts in the generations ahead. And on a personal note, I've been coaxing my wife. She's a wonderful teacher. She's been a homeopath. And I keep telling her, why are you wasting your time? You start your entrepreneurial dream from one room on top of the floor there, and you can do wonders in designing and graphics and everything else. I'm still to push her. She's not renting there. But insofar as everything else is concerned, she knows about the world more than me. She's more pragmatic on all online transactions than I am. So I'm happy. So slowly, but she's more educated than me. She's a doctor, right? So that's the way to go. So I don't think so women are lagging behind. Only thing is, yes, I agree with all the speakers, Faiza, Anupama ji and Dolly ji, when they say that, yes, there are hurdles. And what better, every athlete has crossed that 110 meters hurdle. This hurdle may be a little more longer because it's ruined by societal change over decades and generations. So I believe time has come, and let it be a harbinger for the change, and let this be the platform to take the change out to the world, and let's do more. So thank you from my side, and God be with us as we take this change ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Colonel Dev.
Thank you, Colonel Dev. Amazing points there. And I like the positive note. And I very much appreciate the offer to do it for men to shape up. And I reiterate that the only thing I disagree with is this notion that, women, because they are bringing up the next few generations, they should make sure that they do this. I think women
sorry.
and men.
I didn't clarify properly. I spoke earlier. So I gave an example from my own house. So the gentleman and the lady there, my brother and sister-in-law, fabulous couple at the top of the IT and the airline sector today in US, in whatever they are doing in their sphere. Two kids raised, both do everything in the household 24/7 when are there. So I think it's a collective responsibility to even raise the kids and shape the society. Yes. I'm not for all saying that it's a women's job. No, it is not. It cannot be. In the future, when you see this, they call them dinks, I think 10 years back, I don't know what they call them now. The dinks have to come together and make a philosophy in life that they are sharing all responsibilities.
Right.
So it is not wo Saat Fere mein Panditji does not tell everything to only the man, right, or the woman, right? So the responsibilities are collective. So I am very sure a societal change or a inter-family change is it's not a bone of contention. It's an honor and a privilege for even the male in the society to come out with and help. You can't get away. So if you were alluding to this, that men need to step up, I think you got a point absolutely right, because men do need to step up. I used to be in the army, and I'll tell you an anecdote. All my clerks, you'll appreciate this. All my clerks and everybody used to sit in the office in the evening after games period till 6 o'clock. You know what I did? I got all the families of my unit station and those men into a Sainik Sammelan with my wife, right? And I said, beyond 4:35 after the games period, if your husband is telling you that he's working for the army, he's lying. And next day onwards, the husband and wife, the OR's husband and wife with a doodh ka dallu and a basket for fruit and vegetable on the same street to the market and back. I loved it. And they loved it. So that's the way, if you can make a change, you make a change. Very small example, but a big change. That unit still sways by what I did 8 years ago, and they're following it to the T. Nobody wastes time in office now.
Great. Thank you very much. That was really a good example.
Thank you, everyone. Great session.
Just one, Kumar, please go ahead.
Just I wanted to share one thing that we are doing. As I told you, we are working with the value as part of the Value Research Center.
Right.
We have introduced one KPI for all organizations that we are working with, and the KPI is at least 10% of all goods purchased should be from certified minority and women-owned businesses, service-disabled veteran-owned businesses or workers' cooperatives, and at least 30% of those businesses should be local.
Right.
So we are, and I'm very pleased to tell you that at least 3 companies have agreed to implement this in letter and spirit.
Right.
So, I mean, this is something that
possible. That means it's possible.
We need a will. I mean, where there is a will, there is a way. That's all I want to say.
Absolutely. And we have to create the will, we have to create the way, both of it. There's no two ways.
Absolutely.
So I think on that positive note, we will come to a close.